ซึ่งเหล่าประชาชนนั้นเชื่อว่าการโยนเหรียญใส่ขบวนแส้นี้ถือเป็นการปัดเป่าให้สิ่งชั่วร้ายออกไปจากชีวิตและให้ลูกหลานมีชีวิตที่ดีและราบรื่นในอนาคตซึ่งก็ถือเป็นขนบธรรมเนียมอันดีงามและชี้ให้เห็นถึงหลักพื้นฐานในการให้และการแบ่งปันของประชาชนชาวศรีลังกา
You are seeing one of the biggest Buddhist celebrations of the year, the annual Kandy Perahera, also named as the Esala Perahera. This is in fact a religious ceremony during which devotees pray for sufficient rains to bless the country and crop cultivation, as mentioned before. One of Buddhism's most sacred relics, the sacred tooth, is taken from the temple of Tooth and paraded through the streets as a part of the Kandy Perahera.
In fact, it is to be noted that the Perahera casket, which will be taken in the streets today as well as in this night-long procession, will contain 32 relics of Lord Buddha, representing the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha.
Indeed. And following this, more festive events and dances take center stage, and visitors and onlookers would expect to see a lively cast of dancers, jugglers, and fire breathers milling amongst the crowds. Held in July-August, according to the dates of the full moon, the Esala Perahera has become a symbol of Sri Lanka. And it is very grand, with months of elaborate preparation, elegant costumes, well choreographed demonstrations of talent from various artists, and of course, the sage procession of well-trained elephants.
Tonight, we are about to witness the fifth and the final Randoli Perahera, which is the Grand Randoli Perahera.
And as mentioned before, we will be able to witness fire dancers, Kandian dancers, and various other cultural dancers. The elephants are usually adorned with lavish garments and beautiful lights.
During the Esala Perahera, the sacred relic casket is carried around the streets of Kandy city to honor them, as well as its four guardians, gods Natha, Vishnu, Kataragama, and goddess Pattini. As we mentioned earlier as well, Esala Perahera is considered one of the most beautiful of such processions in all of Asia, and is held yearly to beseech blessings of the gods, to obtain rain for the cultivation of crops, and to enrich the lands of the kingdom. The procession itself signifies rain, and different items in the procession subsequently brings life to the phenomena of rain, creating a spectacle of highest quality and grandeur to the onlookers.
The tooth relic was brought to Ceylon in the year 301 AD, and the first Esala Perahera was performed in Anuradhapura, the first capital where the sacred relic was housed. Even as the capital was shifted for strategic reasons due to invasions, the sacred tooth relic went with it too, and much revered and always held in the custody of the king. Finally, finding a permanent resting place in the hill capital of the last Sinhalese kingdom, Kandy, the sacred tooth relic lies in the Dalada Maligawa, which was built by King Vimaladharma Surya in the 16th century. This three-story building, erected solely for the purpose of housing the sacred tooth relic, still stands and is one of the most visited and significant temples in Sri Lanka.
The Kandy Perahera is usually held for 10 days, and the Randoli Perahera or the Grand Randoli Perahera, which takes place on the 5th night of Randoli Peraheras, is the last procession, and it attracts thousands of visitors every year. But this year, unfortunately, we don't have such visitors due to the coronavirus situation. But still, we are here to broadcast the live Perahera and to bring the live experience to you via social media and via cyberspace. And this procession is the most beautiful and spectacular and the grandest of all Peraheras taking place and marks the climax of the Esala Perahera.
สำหรับ
And
ชาว
this
พุ
is
ทธ
the only
ใน
Perahera in
ศ
the
รีลัง
world
กานั้น
which is
เปรียบ
held
การ
for
บูชา
10
พระเขี้ยว
days.
แก้วว่าไม่ต่างกับการบูชาพระพุทธเจ้า และมักปรากฏความอัศจรรย์ เช่น หากนำพระเขี้ยวแก้วแห่ไปตามเมือง ก็จะมีฝนโปรยปลายลงมา จึงจัดพิธีสมโภชอัญเชิญพระเขี้ยวแก้วประจำปีทุกปี เพื่อขอให้ฝนตกตามฤดูกาลและถือเป็นมงคลต่อเมืองที่ครอบครอง ตามประวัติยังพบด้วยว่าพระธาตุเขี้ยวแก้วประดิษฐานอยู่ที่ศรีลังกา และไม่เคยนำออกไปที่อื่นแม้แต่ครั้งเดียว เพราะพระทันตธาตุส่วนเขี้ยวของพระพุทธเจ้านี้มีความหมาย
The ritual of the Kandy Perahera continues in Kandy, with more and more people attending each year to watch a majestic tusker proudly parade the streets of this ancient Sinhalese kingdom.
ก็ได้มองว่าหากใครที่ได้ครอบครองพระเขี้ยวแก้วให้ถือเป็นผู้มีอำนาจ
And this tusker will be followed by many other elephants and tuskers in the Kandy Perahera, with the custodians and other officials dressed in traditional Sinhalese attire and chieftains riding them. The sound of blowing conch shells and whip crackers starting off the excitement or the approaching Kandy Perahera. The beating of at least 3 types of traditional drums, the colorful Kandian dancers, acrobats, and other artists that perform in the Kandy Perahera, and the light of flame torches certainly would take you back in time.
At the same time, when talking about the symbolism which is associated with the Kandy Perahera, it is necessary to talk about the symbol of elephants. The elephants are the main agency of the pageant. Focusing on its function as a rain-making ceremony, it is believed that the greater the number of elephants at the Perahera, the stronger the parallel with the procession of storm clouds. And we now see the whip crackers, who symbolize the thunder.
สำหรับที่ตั้งของวัดพระธาตุเขี้ยวแก้วนั้นจะตั้งอยู่ที่เมืองแคนดี้ซึ่งแคนดี้มาจากภาษา
On the last night of the Randoli Perahera, the procession, after going round the city, separates into two parts. The Maligawa part proceeds to the Adana Malua, Gedige Vihara, where the golden Karandua containing the sacred relics is deposited.
มีประชากรประมาณ 200,000
The Devali Peraharas proceed to their respective Devalayas, and before dawn proceed to the Gatambethota for the Diyakapana Mangalya, also known as the water cutting ceremony in English. Reaching the Mahaveli Ganga, the procession halts. The Kapuralas and the functionaries of the Devalayas row up the river in decorated boats. Reaching the middle of the river, the Kapuralas with the golden swords describe a circle in the waters.
Talking about these whip crackers, the whipmaster's duty is usually handed down from generation to generation of their clans. According to our traditions, Peraharas that do not have this pedigree are not even worth being called such.
It is indeed an honor for these whip wielders to take the lead of this Grand Randoli Perahera tonight.
It's truly beautiful to see how these whip crackers manipulate their whip very cleverly and without hurting their colleagues.
ต่อด้วยขบวนถัดไปซึ่งเป็นขบวนของนักแสดงควงไฟ
Rain does not come with the sound of thunder alone. Just as lightning flashes across the skies, the procession too has its flashes of light.
เป็นแสงประกายจากบนท้องฟ้าซึ่งเช่นเดียวกัน
This is the offering of fire to the gods to water our lands with
เมื่อสาย
rain.
ฟ้าฟาดลงมาแล้วก็จะมีแสงที่เป็นประกายบนท้องฟ้า
This is a group of fire dancers, and the lightning which comes with the rains, a phenomenon of nature, is magnificently depicted by these fireball dancers.
Indeed, those blinding flashes are a cooling heat in the Kandy Esala procession. In fact, this is the heritage of the traditions of our torch dancers.
สัญลักษณ์ของแสงไฟเปรียบเสมือนผู้นำมาซึ่งเทพเจ้าแห่งสายฝนตามปรากฏการณ์ธรรมชาตินั้นแสงสว่างอันเจิดจ้าจะ
The turning of these fireballs is called Pandampalia, which paints the night with varied patterns of light, illuminating the procession as it proceeds.
การควงไฟไปในทิศทาง
And this group of
ต่าง
fireball
ๆ
dancers is led by
ต้อง
E.D.
ใช้สมาธิเป็น
Tilakaratna.
อย่างสูงและถือเป็นขนบธรรมเนียมเก่าแก่ในการเต้นระบำควงไฟ จะเห็นได้ว่าการแสดงในขบวนต่างๆนี้ถือเป็นอีกหนึ่งประเพณีซึ่งมีความเชื่อมโยงกับธรรมชาติ
The oil-soaked rags are tied to an iron wheel with leather thongs,
ยังช่วยสร้าง
and once those are lit and the dancers perform their dance, by turning the wheels fast, gradually increasing the speed, it is akin to lightning.
แสงส
And
ว่างจากดว
therefore,
งไฟ
we see
จะมี
how
ความ
these
คล้ายคลึงกับสาย
dances
ฟ้าแลบ
are closely related to Mother Nature.
The
เสมื
sun,
อนการ
moon,
เกิดขึ้น
earth,
ดับลง
universe,
พระอาทิตย์
solar
พระ
month,
จันทร์
night, and
โล
day
ก จั
are
กรวา
all
ล
cyclic,
กลางวันกลาง
and the
คื
fire
น
dancers
ซึ่ง
highlight
สิ่งเหล่านี้
these universal
เป็น
cycles
วัฏจัก
and
ร
how they burn and cool us
ของ
in
ชี
our
วิต
life cycles.
โดยการแสดงนี้จะสะท้อนให้เห็นถึงวัฏจักรสังสารของจักรวาล และระลึกถึงวัฏจักรของชีวิตมนุษย์ที่ไม่เที่ยงแท้
As we see now, the true import of
จะเห็นได้
these
ว่า
dancers is seen
นักเต้น
when
ระบ
a
บเพลิง
large
ไฟ
group
ทุก
of
คน
them
จะต้องใช้ส
perform
มาธิและ
simultaneously,
ใช้ศิลปะ
merging their
ในการควง
various
ไฟ
fiery elements into an amazing display of light and heat. The tradition is handed down from generation to generation, with individuals of all ages, from the very young to the very old, taking part in the display of the kingly heritage of their clans.
Indeed, dancers, being mindful of the part fire plays in cooking, protecting crops and hyenas, and dispelling darkness, tame the fire and give it as a Dalada offering, while creating curiosity, satisfaction, and amazement to the onlookers from home.
The fire dancers need to be completely focused and immersed in their art, keeping their minds and bodies one-pointed as they create their cyclic patterns of fire. This is because the slightest inattention could result in disaster.
These dancers are seen creating their paintings of fire across the night sky as they move in this procession. For the children, it is a fire play, and for the experienced elders, it is a devout and committed fire dance.
The fiery life cycle of samsara, flooded with desire, ignorance, and anger, is highlighted by the chakras painted by these fireball dancers.
And now, following the fire dancers, we see a national flag leading a Buddhist flag bearing troupe. The national flag leading this group of Buddhist flags symbolizes that although this is primarily a Buddhist festival, it showers blessings and praise for the peace and prosperity of the whole island nation.
The Buddhist flag is a symbol of faith and peace. 6 colors of the flag represent the colors of the aura that emanated from the body of Lord Buddha when he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. The horizontal strips represent the races of the world living in harmony, while the vertical strips represent eternal world peace.
The sight of Buddhist flag creates a sense of tranquility on the onlookers, reminding them that this is in fact a celebration, devotion, and an offering to Lord Buddha.
Up next, we have the provincial flag bearers. And it is to be noted that all these flag bearers are representing the open prisons in Palikale.
According to the traditions of the Kandyan era, the Nilames in charge of the provinces of the Kandyan kingdom, which comes under the ruling of Bhupati or the Senkadagala king, used to carry their respective provincial flags and parade in this procession. This was a political symbol and further symbolized that the governance of the Kandyan kings were well and in accordance with the Dasaraja Dharma.
This is the traditional display of the provincial standards that remind the present day of the glory and sovereignty of the time of the Senkadagala kings.
And up next, we see the brass standards displaying and reminding us of the proud heritage of the Kandyan era.
Both gold and brass workers belong to the same clan or Gurukula, which is called the Navandanna clan. They are the ones who make the gold ornaments for the pageant, as well as the gold and silver work for the king. And these flags reflect the artistry levels with their detailed engravings.
And I believe this gives us a sense of pride to be a part of a nation rich in culture and such great artistry.
With the durability of the brass flag, the kings of old offered their hope of similar durability and sustainability to the nation.
The brass standard bearers represents those who make gold, silver, and brass and other ornaments for the pageant and for the king. They offer their service to the people of the land and represent the Hela or the local traditions by participating in this procession.
Symbolizing the protection given to the Dalada procession, we now have the sword bearers.
Indeed, clad in white dhoti and a white headdress, carrying the raised swords, not in warfare, but as a disciplined walk of calm serenity. Those who know the history of the tooth relic will be proud of our country and the heroes who protected the sacred tooth relic at all times.
And these sword bearers are from the Ritigala Vishuddhi martial arts group.
The first elephant in the final Randoli Perahera of 2020 is none other than the elephant belonging to the Honorable Devat Nilame, Pradeep Nilangadayala, and his name is Banda.
On Banda's mount we see the Peramune Rala. Clad in white robes, he comes into view, ceremoniously carrying the secretarial scroll. And the duty of the Peramune Rala leading the elephant procession is to inform the citizens of the country that the procession is being carried out in accordance with the directives of the scroll.
we can see the avant-garde drummers, the heavy players, representing the traditional orchestra of Sinhala music known as Panchaturya Nada, with the Panchaturya band as the fivefold musical instruments. 4 of the 5 types are represented here. Daula, the large cylindrical drum, Tammatama, the two-faced kettle drum, Pandampalia, little hand cymbals to keep the beat, and Horonava, the traditional Sri Lankan horn, are played together, giving a symphonic sound. In the first row are marching in serene dance steps drummers from the 4 main lineages Ihalavela, Molagoda, Uduvela, and Maligawa, whose ancestors were assigned by the king to do the duties to the sacred tooth relic, are leading this proud band of drummers. For generations, they have with great devotion brought forth this duty to this day.
Indeed, as the veteran dancer Kalakirti Ravibandhu Vidyapati mentioned, these heavy beaters promote the splendor and gravity of the procession.
The very slow tempo of the rhythm, accompanied by the tune of the Gajaba Vannama on the horns, establish the serenity and tranquility.
And now we see the Gajanayaka Nilame coming into our sight. He arrives as the royal official in charge of the king's troop of elephants, and it is a position given to him directly by the king himself.
And this tusker, parading second in today's final Randoli Perahera, is Raja. Raja belongs to Venerable Alutnuwara Anuruddha Thero, the chief incumbent of the Koti Rajamahavihara. And something special about Raja is that 2020 is the 10th consecutive year that Raja is taking part in the Kandy Esala Perahera after being gifted from Burma in the year 2009 by the former Minister of Foreign Affairs Rohitha Bogollagama.
Here we see the Bulat Padaya dance. Bulat is the Sinhala name for betel leaves. A handful of betel leaves is a symbol of welcome or an offering. This dance carrying betel leaves is quite a recent addition to the Dalada Perahera. It's the Kotala Padaya, the dance symbolizing the sprinkling of saffron water to purify the Perahera path. The Kotala Padaya is a classical dance adapted to the Perahera from the grand old ritual Kohomba Kankaria.
And this group of water career dancers is led by Nalin Jayasekara.
The heavy steps and the extended lines of the arms add glamour and significance to the Perahera.
The third elephant in this procession will be having an official with a Buddhist flag. That is a tradition hailing from the times of Venerable Velivita Sangaraja Thero to signify that this is truly a Buddhist festival, and this magnificent elephant is Salia, belonging to the chief incumbent of the Mahiyangana Rajamahaviharaya, Venerable Urulavatte Dhammarakkhita Thero. Salia had been a participant of the Kandy Perahera since his childhood, and today he is going as one of the leading elephants.
And now, following Salia, we see a young group of fan dancers, also known as the Chamara dancers.
Chamara, the dance with large white tassels, is a popular folk dance that symbolizes fanning. This, in the past, in the royal courts, was a regular feature. And here, today, these dancers symbolically providing the comforts to the sacred tooth relic.
And this group of fan dancers in the Dalada procession has been trained by Nimesh Sumanaratna.
According to our classical poetry of the Kotte period, white tassels in motion and majestic elephants are considered auspicious signs. Sala sudu semera sesat gijindu noda vadi, bala subanimiti peramanga nakatatat vadi is how it is illustrated in the Salalhini Sandesya, the classical poem by Totagamuwe Rahula Thero.
Once a baby elephant lost in the wilds of Kalakaduwa in Polonnaruwa, served as the mascot of the Sri Lanka Army as Kandula III. And today, he is Veera, one of the most precious elephants we have among our legends of Peraharas. Veera belongs to Venerable Kanangama Narada Thero, the chief incumbent of the Sankapitti Vihara in Kaduwela. Veera was gifted to the chief incumbent in the year 2012 by former Minister Vimal Veeravansha from the Pinnawala Elephant Orphanage. It can be noticed how, unlike other elephants, Veera obeys hand signals from his mahout. This could be a possible training and discipline which he has gained as a member of the Sri Lanka Army.
As Veera leaves our sight, we now see a group of Pantera dancers in the Dalada procession.
Pantera is the circular brass frame instrument with small cymbals fixed onto it to give a subtle metallic trill as it shakes. It was originally used to keep the beat in the chamber of versifiers. Since the 18th century, the Pantera was used in development of a semi-classical dance form. There are traditional families who handed down from generation to generation this valuable art. Urapola, Alapalawa, Kadigamua, Patahewa Hatta, and Verake are some of the leading traditional generations who have lived this art to this day.
He is undoubtedly the tallest elephant who will be taking part in this year's Perahera festival. His name is Gajaba. Gajaba belongs to Mr. Ranjit Vijay Singha of the Moranvatta Devalaya in Yakkala, Gampaha.
And we see on Gajaba, on the Mount of Gajaba, a cobra-head canopy is being raised, representing and signifying the protection given to the Dalada sacred tooth relic.
In fact, Gajaba is one of the most promising participants of the Kandy Esala Perahera each year.
And now in the procession, we are seeing the first Nyandi Troupe, led by Vasanta Rajangana and Vasanta Gunadilaka.
Nyandi is the name of this particular costume, which consists of the lower part of the vest costume, yet omits the elaborate headgear. the crowning piece of the entire outfit, which is replaced here with a simple white turban. Starting with the beautiful Narumatra holding the two pleated parts of the costume on either side. The dancers culminated that section of movements with a vibrant Kastirama.
And now we are seeing one of the representing elephants of the historic Muthiyangana Rajamaha Viharaya in Badulla. His name is Muthu. Muthu belongs to the chief incumbent of the Muthiyangana Rajamaha Viharaya, Venerable Murundeniye Dhammaratana Thero. This elephant was gifted in the year 1990 by the former president of Sri Lanka, R. Premadasa.
On Muthu's mount, we see a canopy bearer symbolizing the protection provided to the sacred relic casket. Up next is another dancing segment which symbolizes prosperity.
Malpadaya. This dance holding the beautiful coconut flowers is a classical dance from the Khomba Kankariya ritual. The coconut flower is considered as a symbol of prosperity.
And this group today is led by W.M. Dayananda. Since the Dalada pageant is the great ceremony that brings timely rains and fertility to the land, these dancers pray for that bounty with their coconut flowers.
When it comes to the owners of elephants in Sri Lanka, Mr. Mahinda Galapatti can be called as one of the special people. Both of these elephants, Kanchana and Bibila, represent his elephant stables. In fact, Kanchana was gifted to the Sri Lanka Amarapura Nikaya in the year 1992, and Bibila also to the Amarapura Nikaya in the year 2012. And now, both of these elephants are well looked after and taken care by Mr. Mahinda Galapatti of Giriulla. And on the mount of Bibila and Kanchana, we see two officials carrying Burmese flags. These Burmese flags in fact symbolize the untying bond between Sri Lanka and Burma.
And this is a Thammattam performance by Thammattam players, led by Sujit Ananda from the Ridhigama Asunada clan.
Thammattam is one of the main percussion instruments of Sri Lanka and plays a predominant role in Buddhist festivals. Atata, Vitata, Vitatatata, Ganaya, Sushiraya are the 5 types of instruments of the Sinhala orchestra, and Thammattam belongs to the category of Vitata as it is played with Kadippu, a special kind of drumsticks with a rounded end. The drummers wearing the turban called Devramala, the 2 long pieces hanging on either side of their shoulders, is a typical traditional drummer's costume and adds much glamour to the performance.
It has to be specially mentioned that the personnel who leads this Thammattam team, his father is in fact introduced Thammattam to the Kandy Esala Perahera. Named also Asnanada, it has been 4 years since his demise.
Looking into old and young participants of this Kandy Esala Perahera, we saw a number of young child participants as well. And this little elephant in front of us, in fact, the youngest participant of the Dalada Perahera procession in this final Randoli Perahera today. Her name is Baby Ganga. Ganga belongs to the chief incumbent of the Gangarama Vihara in Colombo, Venerable Kalapudanyani Theru. And in fact, Ganga is also one of the most promising participants of the Kandy Esala Perahera despite her young age.
And this performance is also being done as an offering to Lord Buddha as well as the sacred tooth relic.
Talam dance is a popular dance found in many parts of Sri Lanka. And this is the Kandian form of the Talam dance to the vibrant accompaniment of the Gatabere and Thammatama.
This group of cymbal or talampata players is led by Nimesh Sumanratna.
Talam dance with the long yellow cloth strip can be described under the category of Rupanatum, meaning picturesque dance.
We are having a baby tusker in front of us. This young tusker, whose name is Sindhu, belongs to the Mahanayaka Thero of the Malwatha chapter, Venerable Tibbatuave Sri Siddhartha Sumangala Thero. Sindhu was born in the Pinnaval Elephant Orphanage to Shanti and Jayatu in the year 2006 and was gifted to the Mahanayaka Thero by former President Mahinda Rajapaksha.
And this is a group of tambourine players, or this is a magnificent performance by tambourine players.
Raban Karakavima, although commonly called Raban dance, this in fact is a sport. Raban Kridava, as it is referred to in our traditional literature. It involves the skills of spinning and balancing the tambourine on the fingers and on the tip of a long flexible stick.
There's no doubt that this has to be done with a great discipline as well as skill.
As an age-old tradition, these practitioners are also hailing from long lines of traditional rabang players or rabang spinners.
And this group is led by Aryapala Vijayaman.
Here is the peak of the entire performance. What this little child performs is about what he is about to achieve. To spin and plays a whole set of rabang drums on a set of sticks.
The skill of this small child makes us wonder how at such a young age, with comparatively less experience, such an act could be performed. And what we need to understand is that all these dancers have put so much of effort and dedication to take part in this Dalada procession as an offering to the sacred tooth relic.
The historic Mutiyangana Rajamaha Vihara every year ensures that all three of the elephants take part in the Kandy Perahera, and this is the youngest yet tallest elephant representing. His name is Madhu.
And now we are seeing a very unique dance, the mixed folk dance. And this dancing troupe is led by PCB Vijay Surya.
This is somewhat a modern concept to bring together or to combine different types of traditional folk dances in one group. Types of dances combined here are Likeli, stick dance, Talam, simple dance, Savaran, the tussle stick dance, Chamara, the large tussle, and Raban, the tambourine dance.
And different to the other classical dance forms, this mixed folk dance is characterized by its colorfulness, joyfulness, diversity of dancers and dancing patterns, energy and speed.
The names of both of these female elephants pop up somewhere down the story of Sri Lankan history. On one side, we have Sita, belonging to Mrs. Nilanthi Veerasinghe of Meerigama, and on the other side, we have Kuweni, and Kuweni belongs to Mr. Mahinda Millangoda of the historic Millangoda family in Kegal, who is extremely popular in the legend of Sri Lankan domestic elephants.
And on the mount of these duo of elephants, we see two canopies, again representing the security and protection given to the Dalada sacred relic. And now we are seeing a group of Pantera dancers chanting their way through this Kandian kingdom.
Pantera dance is an essentially Buddhist dance form that grew within the surroundings of the rich and fertile Buddhist cultural atmosphere. These dancers recite poems from the rituals such as Suvisi Vivarana, Satsatiya, Pansalis Vas to accompany their dance, and all from traditional Panteru dance rituals.
In this Kandian kingdom, we see two queens. Rani, which is the Sinhala word for the term of queen. And we have two Ranis here. The Rani on the left, belonging to Mr. S.M. Samaranayak of the Kante Deval in Vilambada, and the Rani on the right, belonging to Mr. Chanaka Jayasekara of Pallevadda.
And now we are seeing yet another Nyandi Troupe led by Saman Nilvitha.
The lower part of the Nyandi dancers consist of a number of ornaments and drapery from the West dancer, namely Ulludaya, the long cloth, Nisan Sangala, the puffy frills, Devalla, the two long pleats on either side. And the said costume is complete with parts like the Inahadaya, the ornament that resembles the decor on the elephant's forehead, Aul Haraya, the elaborate bead chest plate, Bandi Valalu, armlets, Urabahu, epaulets, and Kadukang.
And this tusker in front of us is the prince of the Sri Dalada Maligawa elephant stables, and his name is Singharaja. Singharaja was gifted to the Sri Dalada Maligawa in the year 1995 by the Singha regiment of the Sri Lanka army. He was found as a baby tusker who was lost in the wilds of Vaunia during the Civil War. He was taken care of by the Kandy division of the Singha regiment and was later gifted to Sri Dalada Maligawa and is now one of the most special tuskers of the Sri Dalada Maligawa stables, who is fortunate to carry the Perahera relics, which we noticed in some of the Kumbal and Randoli Peraheras.
The Udakya is a hand drum and it holds a special place in the Dalada celebrations. And we now see a group of Udaki players led by M.B. Tennakon.
The Udakya was also initially used to give rhythmic accompaniment to the panegyric songs of the Kavikara Maduwa. The dancers in the middle forming what is known as Udaki Gataya. The knot with the long strips of the Udakya that is used to modulate the sound of the drum.
It is a practiced fact that two majestic elephants would be parading in front of the ceremonial tusker, and these two mighty, majestic elephants are really good friends, including the two mahouts, who are also dear friends. On one side, we have Raja, belonging to Mrs. Sita Senanayaka Mallava of Hettimulla, and Punchibanda, belonging to Mr. Kitsiri Mevan Velagedara of Panaliya.
Kandy dancers come at intervals in dazzling, pulsating troops. And this is the first West dancing troupe we see in the Dalada procession.
This most glamorous costume symbolically represents the regalia of Kings Malaya, the royal brothers who performed the ancient ritual Hatapas Mangalya 2500 years ago. The headgear also symbolizing the sun rays with the semicircular front piece known as Sikha Bandhane.
And now we see the moment when the President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa, as well as the Commander of the Army, Mr. Shavendra Silva, watch the procession, the Grand Randoli Perahera.
Although the West dance originated in pre-Buddhist rituals, thriving amongst Buddhist cultural surroundings for centuries, the dance has become synonymous with mostly Buddhist ceremonies despite its pre-Buddhist origins.
And this group of West dancers is led by Ishanta Ihalavelu and Lasantha Vansekara.
Welcomed by the West Dancing Troupe is Zakaria Korala, and he is the second in command of the Diwad Nilame, and he's a heritage position given by royal decree.
What you're about to witness is the highlight of the entire procession. We now see the ceremonial tusker in the Raja of Sridhara Maligawa elephant stables, lavishly adorned in golden costumes, walking majestically under a grand canopy and on white cloth carpets, carrying the sacred casket, and also accompanied by the Tusker group, Miyan Raja and Buduma Raja, who also belong to Sridhara Maligawa. As the three fortunate tuskers leave our sight, we now see the chamber of versifiers in the Sridhara Maligawa.
In the times of the kings, the chamber of versifiers sang panegyries to the kings. Today, in the most serene manner, they chant the virtues of the Buddha, playing the silver udakya, the silver panteru, instruments donated to them by the king.
Coming into our sight is the flower lantern grove, carrying flowers as well as lanterns as symbolic offerings to the sacred relic casket. With them, we also see the second troupe of West dancers, led by Peter Surasena and Sanjeeva Verapitiya.
The dancers singing and dancing the Gajaba as they pave the way for the Devadana Nilame, performing salutary hand gestures known as Vandumat or Dekumat. These two Paramparavas leading these dancers, the Verapitiya and the Surasena lineages, have long been in association with the Kandy Perahera and are grand masters of the ritual of Komba Kankarya.
Coming into our sight is the Devada Nilame, or the lay custodian of the temple of the two. And the Devada Nilame of Sharada Maligawa is Honorable Pradeep Nilangadala. The final responsibility for the whole of this mighty procession rests upon the Devada Nilame. The honor and respect provided by the Tun Singhale to the king for the land is given to the Devadana Nilame. And it is also to be mentioned that only the Devadana Nilame is permitted to walk under a Muthukudu or pearl umbrella, since he represents the king himself in the procession.
And as you can see, lined up on either side of the Devar Nilame are the guards. They provide the required protection to Devar Nilame as he walks the streets of the city. And this gesture symbolizes the protection afforded to the king of the land. As the Devar Nilame takes majestic strides in this Kandy kingdom, following, we see the leaders of the 10 villagers. Here, seeing pictures of the Devar Nilame, one sees the uplifting sight that reminds us of our ancient Kandian glory, with him walking in this state. It is indeed a great responsibility that is bestowed upon him, and his pride and majesty indeed reflects this factor.
The presence of the Nilame, the Vidanes, and the guards are to symbolize the free society of the nation that is under the watchful protection of the king. With that, we saw the end of the Dalada procession, and this is the commencement of the Natha Devala procession. The first of the 4 Devala Peraharas is that of the Natha Devale. It is accepted that God Natha is the coming Buddha.
As the godly ornaments are being heralded, the drummers play the Ashirvada Pada or Alati Pada, the rhythms of blessing.
And now, taking the lead of the Natha Devala procession, we see the Buddhist flag bearers. And as mentioned before, since God Natha is accepted as the coming Buddha, the Natha Devala Perahera is also formed in line with the traditional Buddhist worship forms that are more stately and circumspect in their import.
The official going on in the first elephant in the Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera is carrying the flag of Senkadagada. And this majestic elephant is Rohana. Rohana belongs to Mr. Varuna Kannangara, who is hailing from the popular Kannangara family, quite a legendary name in the legend of domestic elephants in Sri Lanka.
God Natha was believed to be yellow in complexion, and therefore we see this mighty elephant being adorned in yellow robes to represent this factor. And now we see the first Havita troupe of the Natha Devala Perahera.
the Nathadevala ensemble of drummers advancing in simple steps to the sound of the Kaman He Visi, the rhythms compatible with the drummer's walk. The decorative tussle added to the daula symbolizes that it is the grand master of the ensemble who hails from a long lineage. Daula, Kammatama, Horanava and Talamata are represented in this grand ensemble of Hevisi drummers.
And this group of Hevisi drummers in the Nathadevala procession is led by S.Y.G. Vijay Singh.
The sound of the drums always heralded this pageant, taking the lead by beating the appropriate rhythms. Jinga, 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 jing, jing. Jinga, jing, jing, jinga, jing, jing. All the rhythm patterns played on these drums can be verbally recited, meaning that the Sri Lankan drumming art is a highly developed and codified system of music.
Now we see the Gajanayaka Nilame of the Sri Nathadevala Perahera, who is responsible for the troupe of elephants taking part in this segment of the final Randoli Perahera. And this elephant is Taraka. Taraka belongs to the Honorable Basnayaka Nilame of the Sri Nathadevala and the Mahiyangan Sumana Samandevalaya, Gayan Hi Kenda. Gajanayaka Nilame in this final Randoli Perahera is Mr. Kihan Jayasinghe.
And the fanning tradition continues in the Devale Peraharas too. What we see now is a group of fan dancers or Savarang dancers in the Nathadevala procession, led by Dinshan Shalika.
Savarang, a popular folk dance with tasseled sticks, making picturesque formations as they make their way through the Perahera path.
In ancient times, the king, his queen, and selected group of officials were honored by being fanned. And since the godly ornaments of God Natha walks along the streets of this city in this procession, it is with great devotion that these dancers stylize their fanning in ordered columns. These are aerial pictures of the great Kandyan city. The gentle breeze generated by these charmer fans is the softest and denotes also in the minds of the people the rise and the fall of thoughts in our mind.
The next duo of elephants in the Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera is with officials carrying Buddhist flags, which symbolizes the connection God Natha has with Buddhism. And the two of these elephants are Vichitaraja, belonging to the historic Dimbulagal Rajamaha Vihara, and Kandura, belonging to Mr. S.M. Roshan Patirana of Maharagama.
And now we are seeing a group of Raban dancers.
Here is a proper Raban dance that is completely different from the previously witnessed Raban Krida, the Raban sport.
And this group is led by Anjana Gamage.
Here the dancers move in proper dance steps, handling the Rabana while making interesting formations. This tambourine is called At Rabana, the hand Rabana. Although the Raban dance is a traditional Sri Lankan folk dance, we did in the past borrow the name Rabana from Malaysia. This shows that Sri Lanka has been a melting pot of many cultures.
Saluting the audience while munching some candy. Here we have Arjuna, belonging to Venerable Dikwale Tissatheru, the chief incumbent of the historic Vaurukannala Rajamaha Vihara in Dikwale. Arjuna was born in the Pinur Elephant Orphanage in the year 1997 and was gifted to the temple in the year 2011.
And that was a beautiful performance by the Thammattam players in the Natha Devala procession.
Thammattama is also known as Pokuru Berea, yet another name given to the Thammattama in our ancient literature because it has two kettle drums bound together into a bunch. It is interesting to note that in South India there is a folk drum called Thambatti. This shows the close cultural connection that we have with our neighboring countries.
And this Thammattam group is led by Jagat Kumar.
Breeding among domestic elephants is quite a rare occurrence due to certain difficulties. Here we see one such successful attempt. the heart-warming picture of both the mother and the son parading together in the Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera in the Kandy Esala Perahera 2020. Kumari and Bandara, both belonging to Mr. Kamal Kitsiri of Kottava.
Yet another West dance. The songs that the dancers sing along with their dancing are based on the Gajaba Vannama. The Gajaba Vannama, descriptive of the majestic gait of the elephant, comparing the tuskers to Airavana, the celestial elephant. The dancers maintain a slow tempo most of the time to express the serene feeling.
This is the West Dancing Troupe, which is led by Vishuddhi Verapitiya. Right before the main Tusker group in the Natha Devala procession, we see the chief trustee taking the streets.
Today, in the final Randoli Perahera, we see the ceremonial Tusker Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera, as usual, Muturaja, belonging to the chief incumbent of the Kandy Vihare in Alutgama, Venerable Kokkavita Vipulasara Thero, who is also accompanied by Kumari, belonging to Vipulasara Thero, and Rani, belonging to Mr. Nalaka Jayasinghe of Godagama.
The troupe of West dancers, led by Asanka Karunaratna.
It is customary that the drummers in the middle never turn their back to the Nilame or the tusker carrying the casket that they are heralding forward.
We now see the second troupe of West dancers in the Natha Devala procession, paving the way for the Basnayak Nilame of the Natha Devale. And this is Mr. Gayan Hinkender, the Basnayak Nilame of Sri Mahanatha Devale in Kandy, accompanied by the Nilames of the rural shrines which are attributed to God Natha. The Basnayak Nilame of Natha Devale, as well as the Nilames of the rural shrines of God Natha, are being provided protection and security by these guards. With that, we are about to see the commencement of the Vishnu Devala procession. The second Devala Perahera of the Dalada procession is the Vishnu Devala Perahera. This Perahera represents God Vishnu, who is thought to be the god overseeing the well-being of the island nation, Sri Lanka.
As the drummers beat Alatipada,
The Vishnu Devala procession takes a turn when it comes to the culture it portrays. Even the flags carried are different, bearing a variety of symbols representing certain zonal and provincial areas. And in certain flags of the provincial areas, you see the vehicle of God Vishnu, known to be as Gurula, a mythical bird.
The first elephant who is parading in the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala Perahera is Taraka, belonging to Mr. Kularatna Vijayatunga of the Rankadu Pattini Devali in Kaduwela, and the official mounted on Taraka is carrying the iconic flag of the Satara Koralaya, which is customarily followed to be carried on the first elephant to be parading in the Vishnu Devala procession. Taraka was an elephant gifted from the Pinnavan Elephant Orphanage to the Rankadu Devalaya in the year 2003 by the former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
And now, following Taraka, we see the Heavy Troupe of the Sri Vishnu Devalaya. And this Heavy Troupe is the official Heavy Troupe responsible of conducting the Tevava of the Vishnu Devalaya.
you can see the Grand Masters bearing the decorative tassels on their instruments, signifying their leadership. Hammatama, falling in the category of Vitata instruments, according to our traditional orchestra, as it is played with 2 sticks, and the Daula, in the category of Vitatatata, played with hand and a stick, is combining with the Horonava and Talam Potter to create a symphonic sound.
And now we see the Gajanayaka Nilame of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala Perahera, who is Mr. Rohan Unandu. And this mighty elephant is Suranimala, belonging to the Dadimunda Devalaya in Alutnuwara. It can be seen how the Vishnu Devala procession is preserving culture by having the Gajanayaka Nilame holding a silver ankus and dressed in a white dress in comparison to the Dalada Perahera, who is permitted to wear in coloured attire.
And now, clad in blue, we see a very young group of Savarang dancers taking the streets in this Sri Maha Vishnu Devalaya Perahera.
Buddhism has accommodated gods and deities of other faiths, especially Hinduism. Hence, Vishnu is considered as a Buddhist god. He is also known as Upulvan, god of the blue lotus.
And now we have the third elephant in the Sri Mahavishnu Devala Perahera, who is Kandula, belonging to the historic Mutiyangana Rajamaha Vihara in Badula, to the chief incumbent, Venerable Murundeniye Dhammaratana Thero. Kandula was bought by the Mutiyangana temple in the year 1972, and he is a definite and most promising participant of the Vishnu Devala procession.
And this is the Grand Randoli procession brought to you live by the Media Bureau of Sri Dalada Maligawa. What we see now in the Vishnu Devala procession is a group of Pantera Dancers.
The costume of the Panteru dancers is quite a simple long cloth, a turban, and a black large handkerchief, and the silver havardier around the waist.
And speaking of costumes, a special feature of the Pantera Dancers in the entire procession is that they wear the original and the traditional attire. In other processions across the island, the Pantera Dancers are attired in costumes styled in various ways. And therefore, it could be said that only in the hill capital, Kandy, that we are able to witness the Pantera dance in its most authentic and purest form.
The simplicity of their costume allows them to perform the acrobatic movements. Of all Kandian dances, the Pantera dance is the only dance where one can witness acrobatics.
Marching forth in the traditional upcountry style is Banda, also fondly known as a Damunupol elephant belonging to Mr. Sisira Samarakot of Polkahavela.
We are now seeing a group of Likedi dancers.
Likeli is also a popular folk dance, common to all regions of Sri Lanka. But with the accompaniment of the Gajaba, this represents the upcountry variety of the Likeli.
It's also to be noted how these elephants as well as the dancers in the Vishnu Devala procession are clad in glamorous blue.
The next duo of elephants in the Sri Mahavishnu Devala Perahera is Tikiri, belonging to Mr. Jagat Vitana of Matugama, alongside with Gamunu, who is a representative of the three elephants taking part from the Pinnavara Elephant Orphanage. This was a decision to support the dwindling population of domestic elephants in the country to the Kandy Esala Perahera, and we see that Gamunu, along with his two other colleagues, have quite a lot of experience right now taking part in the Vishnu Devala procession in Kandy.
Up next, we have the Udaki segment in the Vishnu Devala procession. Coming into our side are the Udaki players.
The traditional Udaki players, attired in the traditional outfit, the turban, the beaded breastplate, and the braided frills.
Next up, we have two young participants of the Vishnu Devala procession, Sanju, belonging to Mr. Jagat Vitana of Matugama, alongside with Gagana, who is also a representative of the Pinnavara Elephant Orphanage.
And we see yet another Pantera dancing troupe. The ring is a thin circle of light brass, and therefore the dance of the Pantera players is subtle and soft. The simplicity of the dance form brings to mind the simplicity and the evenness required for the daily lives of the people as this troupe steps forward in the streets of the city.
Unlike the other Devala processions, something quite special about the Vishnu Devala procession is that we see a lot of duos of elephants taking part together, such as this duo of elephants in front of us, both belonging to Mr. Sarat Jayalat of Ratkarawa in Kurunegala, and the names of these elephants are Kumari and Noni, where Kumari is taking part in the Kandy Esala Perahera after a long time.
The canopies on the mounts of these elephants represent the protection provided to the godly ornaments of God Vishnu. Adding color to the Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya procession, we now have a group of Nyandi dancers.
It is customary that the dancers sing praise songs for the gods, respective gods, known as Kolmura Kavi.
Here we have Puja belonging to Mrs. Kamini Samarasinghe of Kegol, alongside with Muthu belonging to Mr. Indika Muthurgut of Manikin in Kandy, both usual participants of the Vishnu Devala procession.
Yet another West dancing troupe in this Vishnu Devala procession.
Dancers perform a typical Narumatra as the drummers play stimulating rhythms. The usual practice of the drummers is that they play in two groups. While one group plays the main beat, the other group improvises on intricate patterns, thus creating a combined rhythm that stimulates the dancers.
And now we see the chief trustee of the Vishnu Devala procession taking the streets of Kandy, paving the way for the main Tusker group in the entire Devala procession.
Since 2015, the single-tusked yet most majestic Rama, belonging to Mr. Tuda Gunasekara of Heyanthudua, has been the ceremonial tusker of the Sri Mahavishnu Devala procession in the Kandy Esala Perahera, and this year too, he is dedicating the best of his majesty to this role. As usual, today also he is accompanied by Vasana, belonging to Mrs. Krishanti Alapatha of the Alapatha Valauva in Ratnapura, alongside with Mali, belonging to Mr. Chatura Vikramanayaka of Horana. All three of these elephants represent families who have been legendary owners of elephants throughout history, but now all three of these elephants are the last of their heritage.
another group of West dancers paving the way for the Nilame.
These dancers and instrument players, who are part of the procession, engage in this spectacular event for a number of days at a stretch.
Walking in majesty are the Nilames of the Devalayas attributed to God Vishnu. And this is the Basnayaka Nilame of Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya in Kandy, Mr. Mahindra Ratwatte, accompanied by the Nilames of the Pittisara Devalayas or the rural shrines attributed to God Vishnu. All these Nilames are provided sufficient protection by the guards and the officials surrounding them.
And now we are seeing pictures of the Devalaya premises of the Sri Mahakatragama Devalaya.
Alatipada or rhythms of blessing being played.
And as these rhythms of blessings are being played, we now see the chieftain of the Sri Katragam Devalaya placing the godly relics on the tusker. And now, in the forefront of the Sri Katragama Devalaya Perahera, we see a group of Buddhist flag bearers.
The third Devala Perahera in the entire procession is that of the Kataragama Devalaya. The Kataragama Devalaya in Kandy had been built in the 14th century and it became more popular in the 16th century. It is dedicated to god Skanda Kumara or god Kataragama. It is believed that the god has 6 faces and 12 hands. The color or the slashes worn by these flag bearers is red, and also on their flags we can see the symbol of peacock, which is considered the vehicle of god Kataragama. These flag bearers once again remind us of the fact that this procession is of national importance as well as religious importance.
God Katragama, who was believed to travel in a peacock, is believed to have had 6 heads and 12 hands. And further, he is a god who is revered to be as a very strong and powerful god by the Hindus. Speaking of which, god Katragama is also believed to be the god of war. And therefore, in this Kataragama Devala procession, we shall witness an increase in the pace and energy in the performances.
We can see the heavy players of the Kataragama Perahera advancing. Ever since the sacred Bodhi sapling was brought to Sri Lanka, paying homage to the Buddha and sacred objects associated with the Buddha has been a strong tradition. It is mentioned that among the service guilds that arrived to do services to the Bodhi sapling, there were musicians and drummers. Since then, paying sound homage to the sapling and later to the sacred tooth relic has been an unbroken tradition, thus establishing a powerful art of drumming. It is that age-old and revered art that these drummers represent today in the very traditional manner.
And now we see the Gajanayaka Nilame of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devala procession, who is parading in the first elephant in this segment of the Kandy Esala Perahera. This elephant is Manike, belonging to Mr. Anuratissa Kempitiya of Kulpane in Kegol. Just like how dance troops are following in this procession now.
Indeed, and this is a very young troupe of Thalam players taking the lead or participating in this Kataragama Devala procession. The incorporation of color red, known to be the color of god Kataragama, has to be greatly appreciated, for this color has been incorporated in the elephants and in many of the performances in this Perahera.
Talking about the colors of the costumes, red and white have been the significant colors of the traditional costumes of Sri Lanka. Group of young Udaki players clad in the traditional costume.
And this group is led by Dhammika Bandara Thinnakon.
A typical movement of the Udaki dance is the waving or swirling of the tassel. The Udakya is an instrument that symbolizes the universal sound. The small Udakya that
And now we have one of the most special elephants in this year's Sri Maha Kataragama Devala Perahera. Her name is Kumari, belonging to Mr. Asanka Vijayasinghe of Balangoda, where Kumari served as a Dal elephant for the royal tusker in the first few Kumbal Peraheras.
A very vibrant dance segment. In fact, this is a group of wooden stick dancers performing in the Kataragama Devala procession.
The young dancers energetically celebrate the glory of God Kataragama. In this ensemble of drummers, it is interesting to note that Dandupere players are following. Dandupere is a children's drum that is made out of bamboo.
Up next, we are about to see one of the most significant dancing performances in the Kataragama Devala procession. And this procession itself bears the uniqueness because we have the peacock dance in it.
Indeed, as mentioned, this section of the Kataragama Devala procession takes us somewhat away from the traditional dance forms of culture portrayed throughout the procession so far witnessed. The peacock, believed to be the vehicle of god Kataragama, is being demonstrated in this art form. As you can observe, the characteristics and the appearance of the peacock is not only portrayed through the costumes, but by the dance moves as well.
The music of the drum ensemble for this dance combines a traditional South Indian tawil drum and some Western drums, the snare drum, together with trumpets. Traditionally, it was the tawil and the South Indian horn nadaswaram that were played.
Indeed, and the gradual increase in the pace of the beats and the tunes in this Devala Perahera was to enter this form of fast and strong Kavadi beats. It should be appreciated, the efforts should be appreciated, taken to create this vivid and colorful outlook of a peacock, followed by an energetic group of Kavadi dancers dressed in red.
Kavadi dancers moving forward as if they are in a trance, holding the weapons attributed to god Kataragama, the trident. Although a very traditional dance, the music we hear connects us to the modern times of the contemporary society as they play a very popular song.
In contrast to the more controlled dancing art forms of the classical upcountry dancing forms, this South Indian influenced Kavadi dancing form is almost effortless.
A sheer expression of devotion
Indeed, this is a dance form of offering and veneration for God Kataragama.
As we are witnessing the Grand Randoli Perahera today, it's truly amazing to see how all these traditions, the Buddhist as well as the Hindu traditions, coexist in the same environment.
And now we have the youthful elephant belonging to the Mahanayaka Thero of the Sri Lanka Ramani Nikaya Venerable Napane Premasiri Thero. His name is Vishwa, who was born in the Pinnawara Elephant Orphanage in the year 2006 and was gifted to the Mahanayaka Thero by former President Mahinda Rajapaksha in the year 2011. And right now, he lives in the Shasana Vardhana Pirivena in Meerigama under the guidance of Venerable Sita Iliye Mahinda Thero.
As red-robed Vishwa leaves our sight, we are about to see another West dancing segment in the Kataragama Devala procession. It's customary to have 2 troupes of West dancers in every Perahera segment, and this is the very first troupe of West dancers that we see in the Sri Maha Kataragama Devala procession.
The West dancers paving way to the elephant carrying the casket.
And this dance form is symbolic of the highest epitome of a dancer in their Udarata dancing career. And it has taken Sri Lankan culture and art forms into the international stages.
The ensemble of Nadaswaram players, keeping with the ancient South Indian tradition, Kandy dancers now performing the Narumatra, a style that was introduced to Kandian dancing by the great guru Pittavela Gunaya.
This is the group of West dancers led by Dhammika Bandara Thinnakon.
Tawil and Nadaswara are also traditional temple drums belonging to Hinduism. The Tawil also falls into the Sinhala category of drums with the Tatata played by hand and a stick.
This is the most awaited moment in the Kataragama Devalaya procession. With the Tawil Nadasaram sounds coming into our sight, is the casket bearing the godly ornament called Kataragama. And right in front of the main Tusker group in the Kataragama Devala procession, we see the chief trustee taking the streets.
Following the ire of the Kataragama Devala Perahera, we see the ceremonial elephant. Today, for the very first time in a final Randoli Perahera, we see Sankaraja belonging to the chief incumbent of the historic Sankapala Rajamaha Vihare in Abilipitiya, Venerable Kolambageyara Ananda Thero. Sankaraja is accompanied by Aruna belonging to Venerable Hikoda Saddananda Thero of the Handana Rajamaha Vihare in Vattala and Esala belonging to Venerable Katugastota Sharada Thero of the Senanayaka Pirivena in Varakapola.
Decked in gleaming red robes, the main Tusker group in the Kataragama Devala procession now takes the streets of Kandy.
Candian dancers paving way for the Nilame in serene steps. Simple yet earthbound.
And this is the West Dancing Troupe led by Upananda Thalkahakoda. Reflecting the Kandian glory, we now see the Nilames of the Kataragama Devale coming into our sight. The Basnayak Nilame of Kataragama Devale, Mr. T.B. Gamanuvali Sundara, as well as the Nilames of the rural shrines of Kataragama Devale. The Basnayak Nilame is accompanied by the Nilames of the rural shrines. And it is to be noted that they are his sons. The prestige is shown by the way they walk and also by the way they are provided the protection. And that ends the procession of Sri Mahakatragama Devale, paving the way for the commencement of the last of the Devala Peraharas, that of the Pattini Devale.
Makul Bera on the Kandy drum, followed by Alati Pada on Daula and Thammattama being played, while Alati Amma performs the blessings with a lamp.
And taking the forefront of the Pattini Devala procession, we see a group of Buddhist flag bearers. And this procession is most unique due to the only woman representation that can be seen in the entire Esala pageant that annually takes place in the hill capital. And we are seeing aerial pictures of this majestic and beautiful Esala Maha Randoli Perahera.
The grand Hades ensemble of the Pattini Devala Perahera. Taking their steps forward in typical drummers movement, the Tum Adia.
Leading from Perahera of the Sri Mahapattini Devalaya, the first elephant is with the Gajanayaka Nilame, who is responsible for the troop of elephants in this part of the procession. And this elephant is Sita, belonging to Mr. S.M. Roshan Patirana of Maharagama. And something special about Sita and the Perahera of the Sri Mahapattini Devali in Kandy is that Sita was one of the very few fortunate she-elephants to get the opportunity to carry the godly ornaments of the Pattini Devalaya back in the year 2014.
It is also to be noted that the color attributed to goddess Pattini is also yellow. Therefore, in this segment, we can see dancers as well as elephants clad in beautiful yellow robes. And this is the speciality or the significance of the Pattini Devala procession.
The involvement of the female dancers, and this is the only segment, the only Perahera of Dalada Perahera that female dancers are performing, paying reverence to goddess Pattini. The Pantera that the dancers carry is associated with goddess Pattini. It is believed that the Pantera represents the anklet of the goddess. සිත්ලෙස ලෝ සැදි චක්‍ර වලල්ලා නෙද්දස සුරින්දුගේ නුවර සියල්ලා පත්තිනි දෙවිඳුගේ සලඹ වලල්ලා ගත්තේ අතට පන්තේරු වලල්ලා. This poem illustrates well the connection of the Panteru to goddess Pattini.
And right now we see the second elephant, the Sri Mahapattini Devala Perahera, who is Ratna, belonging to the chief incumbent of the Siripada Vihara as well as the historic Palmadulla Vajmaha Vihara in Ratnapura, Venerable Bengamwe Dhammadeva Thero, who is also the chancellor of Uvavelas.
Up next, we see another significant dancing segment, which is called the Goyam Natuma, or the harvest dance.
Representing well the agrarian culture of Sri Lanka, this dance enacts activities of paddy cultivation. The frontline dancers with a handful of paddy, boys with sickles, and a group of girls with the winnowing fan and others carrying pots. All these symbolize the great agrarian culture that Sri Lanka boasts of.
And now we have another representation from the Pinnavala Elephant Orphanage, who is Pillumale, usual participant of the Vishnu Devala procession, but this year Pillumale is seen in the Sri Mahapattini Devala Perahera.
And now we see a female Chamara dancing troupe led by Ajanta Kandegedra.
Pattini is the goddess of chastity according to ancient literature. The Pattini cult was brought here to Sri Lanka in the 12th century during King Gajaba's time. Shilapatikaram, the well-known Tamil poem, unfolds the story of this goddess. And in Sri Lanka, Pattini, goddess of chastity, came to be considered a Buddhist god.
The beauty of this Perahera is indeed magnified with the joining of these beautiful female dancers, adorned in vibrant colored attire and very unique head attire.
Now we have one of the most gentle participants of this year's Perahera festival. His name is Bandara, belonging to Mr. Kitsiri Katamitiya of Horana.
And this is another beautiful dancing performance of the Canadian tradition, performed by female dancers respectively in the Pattini Devala procession.
A pure classical dance, this is the female counterpart of the classical West dancers.
These female dancers take the streets of the Kandian kingdom